Welcome to Pali Threads. My name is Khaled Sasa, and today we're going to be talking elections. The Canadian elections, in case you're not aware, is Monday, April 28th. I've been asked frequently who I'm voting for. Similar to previous elections, whether provincial or federal, I say that I'm not voting. In fact, I refuse to vote as principle in a settler colony. I refuse to legitimize the systems, the structures in a state where it is founded on the genocide of the indigenous peoples of this land. This, for me, stems from being a Palestinian, seeing that Israel tries to claim that it is a democracy. People who go and vote in the Israeli elections are also legitimizing that Israel is a democratic power, when in fact it is not. The system there is built to maintain the white Jewish supremacy over the indigenous Palestinians. Similarly, here on Turtle Island, the Canadian settler colony and its institution, even if we may have a indigenous governor general or an indigenous premier in Manitoba, they continue to uphold white supremacist power in the state. For that reason, I refuse to vote in the Canadian elections. But we're going to dig a little bit deeper and look at our options. The main parties that you can vote for in the Canadian elections are the Liberal Party, which have been ruling the country since 2015 under Justin Trudeau, or the Conservatives, who, if you miss the Stephen Harper era from before Trudeau, you can go and vote for Pierre Poilievre. You have the NDP, which is seen as like a leftist party, but really is far from that. You have the Greens, which are a really confused party and don't seem to want to take a political stance. You don't really know if they're left, right, but according to them, they move forward. And these are like the four main parties. What do you get under liberal rule? It's like choosing between Democrats and Republicans. In the end, they both support the Zionist genocide of Palestinians. They both support global Western imperialist projects. If we look back under the Harper era, Canada bombed up Libya. They were proud that Canada punched high above its weight in the bombing campaign of Libya and in the destruction of the country. Under the Conservatives, house prices actually went up under Stephen Harper from 2006 to 2015 by over 70%, your average single-family home. That's actually more than house prices went up under Justin Trudeau. The Liberals under Trudeau promised they will not be purchasing the F-35 warplanes that the Harper Conservatives were planning on buying before Trudeau was elected in 2015. Eventually, the Trudeau Liberals decided they're going to go with the same F-35 warplanes that Trudeau promised he wouldn't buy as a core campaign promise in 2015. Not only did they buy the same jets, they added an additional 23. So rather than buy 65, the Trudeau Liberals bought 88 F-35 warplanes. Of course, these were from Lockheed Martin, and then the Trudeau Liberals decided to buy 15 warships, also in another contract with Lockheed Martin. And the cost of these warships will be about $306 billion. And add to that the F-35 warplanes. We're giving almost $400 billion for these weapons that are likely to just be used to bomb other countries in the global south, like Libya, like Yemen, like Syria, etc. So that is what you get under the Liberals and Conservatives. Are there slight differences? Perhaps. Maybe the Conservatives will attack protesters against genocide more. Maybe the Conservatives are going to attack the rights of women, minorities, scientists, efforts to combat climate change. But at the same time, how much have the Liberals done, really, to protect that? The Liberals still assaulted indigenous peoples protesting the building of pipelines on their lands. The Liberals have also, under their watch, attacked minorities, imprisoned people protesting against genocide. But not only that, yeah, they put an indigenous governor general in power, but that's really mostly tokenizing indigenous peoples. For me as a Palestinian, I view that as like Mahmoud Abbas being our president. That is my initial take on these two parties. And then we can move to the NDP. So the NDP under Jagmeet Singh has been incredibly cowardly, spineless, and it's hard to even differentiate them from the liberals and sometimes the conservatives. Take, for instance, and we're going to talk federal NDP and provincial NDP because oftentimes the federal has done little to distance themselves from the provincial NDP when they've made terrible policy decisions. Federally, Jagmeet had said that he would not interfere against Bill 21 if elected. If you don't know Bill 21, it's a bill that was passed that bans people from wearing religious clothing and working in the public service. For example, a Muslim woman who wears the hijab cannot work as a teacher in Quebec, or a man who is Sikh and wears a turban cannot work in the public service. So this would also impact the NDP's own leader, Jagmeet Singh. But for him, because he's so desperate on getting the vote from Quebec, he thought maybe if he appeals to the masses in Quebec that the NDP will succeed more. But if anything, it just showed how spineless the NDP is. It's not like these racist people who would support, I'm not saying Quebecois people are racist, but people who would support the racist Bill 21. It's not like they're going to go and say, you know what, we're going to vote for Jagmeet Singh because he's not going to interfere in this bill. They will not vote for you if you're wearing a turban or a hijab. It's hard. It's not just Bill 21. Then Jagmeet once said he supports the right of BDS or something like that on Twitter. A few years later, he goes on a radio by CIJA, which is Canada's biggest Israel lobby, says that he opposes BDS, the Palestinian-led boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel and its genocide. The NDP used to oppose NATO. Now it's very pro-NATO. I just watched a video by BBC Radio, and Heather McPherson was saying we all agree unanimously that Canada needs to spend more on its military. Why is this unanimous? Why do we need to spend $400 billion on these F-35 warplanes that aren't even suited for Canadian military needs? And then these warships, we have increasing numbers of homeless people in our streets. Healthcare lines are becoming longer and longer, becoming increasingly difficult to live in this country, and everyone knows it, but we're calling to increase military spending. And for what? Is it to defend from the US or who? No, it's really to go and bomb Libya. Where have our weapons been used, really, in the past? I also want to talk about the provincial NDP. At the provincial level, if we look at the BC NDP recently, their education minister, Selena Robinson, went out and just called Palestine a crappy piece of land. She resigned after there was public outrage. The fact she was able to be in the party and assigned a position of minister holding these kinds of views in this leftist party is astonishing and telling, honestly. And then we have the Ontario NDP, where they expelled Sarah Jama for making a bare minimum statement in line with international law, supporting Palestinian human rights. They expelled her despite her having apologized for making this bare minimum statement. They expelled her. They never let her back despite the outrage. And I did not see the federal NDP go and condemn that. And the provincial NDP also allowed the racist anti-Palestinian IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which conflates criticism of the Zionist entity with anti-Semitism. It passed 55-0 in the Ontario Parliament, was and continues to be the official opposition, so the second biggest party in Parliament, didn't vote against it. It passed 55-0. Some NDP members of provincial Parliament even voted in favor of this anti-Palestinian bill. It's atrocious. So for me, I do consider the NDP to be a white supremacist party, to be racist, imperialist, like the conservatives and the liberals. Yes, maybe we have different levels. You have, just like in Israel, liberal Zionists and more extreme Zionists, but in the end, they're all Zionists. And then you have the Greens. It's led by Elizabeth May. They may have a co-leader who was going to speak on the debate. They didn't let him speak. But the Green Party, they were going to be led by someone who's actually progressive, a green socialist, Dimitri Lascaris, a human rights lawyer who is supportive of Palestinian rights. But Elizabeth May put her full force supporting Zionist enemy Paul, who ended up winning by a slim margin over Dimitri, and the party went into total irrelevancy after that. And again, we don't even know where the party stands. How can you be what is eco-capitalism? How do you have some people who run for you who are eco-capitalists? It doesn't make sense. The Conservatives, first of all, let's look at Pierre Poilievre, who's the candidate running for the Conservatives. His voting record is atrocious. He's a career politician and he's voted against same-sex marriage. He's opposed free diabetes medication, pharmacare, increasing the minimum wage, against $10 a day child care, against the child benefit, against dental care for children. He's voted to ban abortion. He's voted to raise the retirement age. And in 2008, Poilievre even went to speak on a radio claiming that Indigenous residential school survivors need to get over the trauma and learn the value of hard work instead of requesting compensation for the genocide that they were enduring at the hands of the Canadian settler state. And you're really considering this person as the hero and savior to all your problems that you're suffering. Maybe that's not the solution. Such a white supremacist, capitalist person who's seeking to crush your healthcare system, who's seeking to cancel pensions, the care of your children. But it's unfortunate that I see so many people, especially from my own Muslim communities, even Palestinian community, who seem to think he's a solution because they buy into his whole axe the tax, or they're making your children gay in schools. Come on, guys, think. It also seems people have forgotten about the Stephen Harper era. It was under Harper who brought in a new law that says you can be stripped of your citizenship if you have a second citizenship. If you were born outside of Canada, have a citizenship for somewhere else, the Canadian government, if they deem you a threat to national security, they'll come and take your Canadian citizenship and kick you out of the country. But what is a threat to national security? Maybe if you protest in support of Palestinian rights, you are deemed a threat to national security. And that's a whole other conversation I'd love to have one day, which I discussed a lot of my master's research. How do you define national security? What is an Indigenous definition of national security? These are interesting concepts to reflect on. The Conservative Party leader said on March 24, "We will lock up the anti-Semitic rioters. We will deport from Canada anyone who is here on a visa that breaks the law or commits a crime." According to the Conservative Party, anyone who condemns the state of Israel is an anti-Semite. So people protesting against Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza would be deemed anti-Semitic, quote-unquote, rioters. According to Poilievre, anyone who goes out into the streets to protest in support of Palestinians, protest against these crimes, they are going to lock you up. They're going to deport you from Turtle Island, as if this white supremacist gets to choose who to deport. Pierre Poilievre's deputy leader, Melissa Landsman, is proud to have grown up in a hardcore Zionist home. She's anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic, and outright racist. She has even claimed that Palestinians should be more like peace-loving Gulf states who normalized with Israel. She has perpetuated lies in parliament that Palestinians have put babies in ovens and has conflated Palestinians with rapists, while wearing an Israeli military dog tag in the Canadian Parliament as a sitting Canadian MP. So this person is the second highest up in the Conservative Party. Basically, she'd be like what Chrystia Freeland was under Trudeau as the Deputy Prime Minister, should Poilievre get elected. Ultimately, I have just shared with you the options that you have in this fine election in the settler colony. You get to pick. Why would I go vote? Is there a lesser of evil? Yeah, if I'm voting in the Israeli election, maybe there's more right-wing, more extreme Zionist parties. But I don't believe in this whole structure state that's built on oppression that only seeks to keep serving that system of oppression. Traditionally, there have been some indigenous communities on Turtle Island who have boycotted Canadian elections as well. Pamela Palmater, the Mi'kmaq activist, a lawyer and academic, wrote once in Maclean magazine saying, regardless of who First Nations vote for in any federal election, their voice makes no actual difference. When Indigenous peoples vote, they vote for their next oppressor. What is the core difference between past racist and aggressive governments, which didn't give our lands back or respect our treaties? Heading into these federal Canadian elections, you have choices between 4 different white supremacist parties, all on different levels. It's your call whether you want to vote or not. For many people, your intentions are in the right place and you want well. How we get to a better society and better world can be a contribution of different methods and strategies. If voting is one way, then you should do that. I don't believe it is the way, at least for me. Whether we go from Harper to Trudeau, Carney, Poilievre, whatever, they're all genocidal and we need to find alternative strategies. And is this all doom and gloom? No, I'm actually very optimistic about the future. People sometimes think, do you not like the people of this country? Like, why would you not vote and not care? There's still a difference between Carney and Poilievre. Yes, there is a difference between Carney and Poilievre. Whenever I see Carney leading the polls against Poilievre, I feel some more ease in my heart. But at the same time, in the long term, I want to see real change. And that's because I actually care for the indigenous populations of this land. As a human rights activist, I care and want to see a better world for everyone too. When I say I feel some ease when I see Carney leading in polls, that's because of short-term interest. I feel just a bit safer here as a minority, but still unsafe under his white supremacist rule. In the long run, Carney will just continue to uphold the status quo. That's not the way forward. I think we need to show that people do not view this quote-unquote democracy as legitimate. By voting, you continue to demonstrate that we legitimize these systems. And in the previous Ontario elections, we keep seeing really low voter turnouts. The lower that gets, the more it shows that people do not recognize these systems as legitimate. They don't believe in them. It shows that people are more aware, they're thinking, and these systems are closer on the verge of collapse. Because in the end, a system is only successful, a democracy is only a democracy if it is seen as such by the people, if it is legitimized. And it is only inevitable for a system that isn't truly a democracy to be delegitimized by the people. The question is, if we're all going to vote, it's clear we're still blinded because we think we actually have options and an ability to make change. But how much change is actually being made? I want to discuss in the future the topic of accelerationism. And so this is a bit controversial. I look at the US, I look under Trump, and I think maybe when you look at it from a perspective of countries in the global south, they look at a country in the US that has oppressed them for many years, and that maybe they see the fall of this evil empire under the hands of Donald Trump. And so for a lot of people in the US, it sucks what Trump is doing, the attacks on minorities and deporting of people. I would probably be attacked myself as a human rights activist there. But at the same time, when you try to think of it from other people's perspectives, maybe this is something that's needed in the long run. This is a power that has really harmed the whole world. Similarly, here in Canada, the Liberals have not done anything to stop climate change or to slow it down, like the carbon tax. And nor do I believe the NDP is going to do that when they want to increase military spending as well. And they're pro-NATO, which has been bombing up Libya and is not a defensive power, but it is a hardcore colonial power. So it's just important to take these into consideration. Sometimes reflect on, why do you feel so scared about something? I'm going to leave it there. Thank you. If you voted, I wish you the best. I look forward to the next podcast. I record podcasts every other week and release a podcast every other Sunday. You can go on my website, palithreads.com, to read my blogs, and you can subscribe to my Patreon, where I will be releasing more juicy, exclusive content. If you want me to research a specific topic, I focus on what my subscribers on my Patreon suggest. I hope to hear from your comments, your thoughts, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Salam.